focus on your customer and like what is the
Yeah.
value you're providing, not like the cool shiny tech that backs it.
Yeah.
If you can start by proving that you can deliver the value, fast track what it takes to get there, then you can like optimize the tech to make it even better later.
This is Noah from Vellum. Very excited to have Noah on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Noah's been doing a lot of really cool stuff around LLM. What do you call it? Just
The general category, you can call it like LLM Ops, but we really think about it as like building a platform that helps enterprises build LLM powered features end to end and accelerate the pace at which they can do so.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
This is like an entirely new field.
It is.
Basically.
I mean, I'd say like the closest analogy is probably like ML Ops, which is not so much of a new field, but taking a lot of the same principles and applying it to large language models, AI, and some of the new stuff that's been coming out.
Yeah. Was anybody doing anything like this when you started?
Not really. There was a couple companies. I think the one company that had been through YC, but it was a very, very new field. I mean, if you think about when we started, it was like January. But really, this whole craze started with ChatGPT being released in the November beforehand. So that kind of wave started pretty closely to when we did.
What got you into it?
It's a wild journey. I mean, ultimately, I was at Dover, which was a recruiting tech company founded through YC in 2019. And in early 2020, they had access to like GPT-3 in private beta. And so we were using GPT-3 back in those early days to do things like classify incoming candidate replies to emails as to whether or not they're interested in the job, and felt many of the pains of like what it took to make these models reliable, test them, regression test them, tweak the prompts, prevent things from breaking once you go into production. And that was kind of like the birth of it all, is like seeing some of that and seeing these models get better and better, but the problems persist.
So what were you doing before Dover?
Before Dover, I was at a company called Data Robot in Boston, and I was on the MLOps platform team building kind of like similar tooling, but for the world of machine learning and data science. So we were doing things like helping companies detect drift, track accuracy over time, latency, service metrics for your more traditional classifiers, multi-class classifier, time series models, things like that.
So basically, you've been doing ML Ops since before ML Ops was a term.
Like on and off, yes. In my career,
Were you like the first person to have it on your resume?
I wouldn't go that far, no.
Did you look around at other resumes like, I gotta add this one?
I'd say while I was at Data Robot, that's when MLOps really started to become an industry. You saw like other really successful companies capitalize on that phrase, like Weights and Biases is having a lot of success these days in the world of MLOps, and it is a whole field of its own for sure.
Did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Pretty much, I would say. I'd say in high school, I always kind of straddled the balance between being technical and engineering, but also seeing the value of like, it doesn't matter how cool of a thing is that you build if people don't find it useful, or if you can't sell it, or if you can't make people like help people learn about it. So I'd say that like urge kind of has ebbed and flowed throughout my career, but it's always been there.
You could have executed on that urge at a company, right?
At what? Sorry?
At a company, at another startup.
Yeah. And I'd say I did in different forms. Most of my career has been spent at startups, and even within the larger startups on teams that kind of acted like startups within it. So I'd say through Onshape, the first company I was at, then through Data Robot, then through Dover, at each of those was playing many roles, wearing lots of hats, and kind of like having the training wheels on to start my own thing someday.
So you would describe not starting your own thing as having training wheels on. That kind of implies that you need to, right? That you need to work somewhere else first before,
That was my path, the path that I chose. It's certainly not the path that a lot of people take and have a lot of success with. But like my take was I wanted to learn the go-to-market motion, and I did that through Onshape. Then I wanted to become like a
Were you sitting there thinking like, I'm here learning the go-to-market motion?
um to some degree,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of like I
Okay.
would purposefully
Just
put
out of
myself in.
college, you're
Yeah,
like,
like
go-to-market motions.
I didn't call it at the time. I was like, I should learn how to sell something, or
Yeah.
I should figure out what it takes to convert people on a marketing landing page.
Yeah.
Like
Did you learn how to sell something?
I did, I'd say
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
What was that process like?
Mostly just becoming friends with sales folks, becoming friends
Yeah.
with marketing folks, and genuinely trying to be helpful. So if
Yeah.
if a sales engineer was out sick, I'd volunteer to help do a sales demo and hop in and cover for them and do stuff like that. Yeah.
How many sales demos were you doing?
There was a good couple month period where I was probably doing 10 a week, something like that, 8 a week.
Yeah. Did you find that more fulfilling than the engineering work?
I really enjoyed it. I think like I love being able to do a bit of both. I think if I'm doing either one for too long, I get a little antsy. And so there is something very fulfilling about like preempting what people's objections might be, like kind of deconstructing the path of the conversation and like showing them what will both like prevent them from objecting to a solution, but also like genuinely be useful and valuable to them. There's something fun about that for me.
So do you do a lot of that now at
Yeah,
Vellum?
totally. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you think that that's necessary for a founder to do a lot of this?
Once again, I think everyone probably has their own path and it depends who your co-founders are. For me personally, like, I most of my time I'd say is spent on product and engineering, but I learn what we should build and how we should build it by seeing like what causes prospects' faces to light up when I'm showing them a demo of something. So I think for me, I treat it as like a feedback loop where I can pitch something, test a message, float an idea that I'm thinking about prioritizing on our roadmap, see how people react to it, and then take those learnings with me.
So you set up your feedback loop to be very in person, like or maybe not in person, but very face to face.
Yeah, and these early stages that we're in, I think that's super useful.
Yeah. So that was an intentional decision.
Very intentional. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's different approaches. We could go like wide distribution, try to like free sign up everything and be much more like quantitative data driven. But, and who knows, that might be a strategy that we take someday.
Yeah.
But there is something very like impactful about trying to sell someone something and seeing how they respond and iterate based on that.
How did you find your co-founders?
The three of us worked at Dover together. We had worked together for like 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
We were amongst some of the early employees there. And so we're just both friends and coworkers and got along well. And we're able to work remotely together for a long time.
Did you all leave your job like at the same time to start this, or is it like one by one?
No. Yeah, it's a fun story. I think like Akash and Sid, like Sid was like the impetus for a lot of it, where like he, I think, had floated to me over the course of multiple months. Hey, have you thought about starting your own thing? He did a similar thing to Akash with Akash.
To Akash.
Yeah, to Akash.
You're going to start Akash. Your own thing. You're going to do
That's
it.
That's right. And then I think they came to the conclusion that they wanted to start something before I did, and then approached me. I was like, wait a second, we work really well together. We have complementary skill sets. Like the timing feels right. Like, yeah, let's do it.
Has it always been an easy path for you guys?
No, definitely not.
What's been some hard moments?
Hard moments. Early on in YC, I guess for those that don't know, like we did apply to YC with a very different idea and learned about 2 weeks in that we needed to do a hard pivot and change the direction. So that was like an emotionally challenging time. I think, we're very fortunate in that we landed on an idea that we were really excited by quickly. That's now Vellum, and that it was the right idea for us, and that but yeah, that was a tough time for a few days there.
For a few days. Like it was the hardest 2 days.
It was
the last.
It was like
2
3
months.
days of like existential crisis, like 2.5 weeks of hardcore validation and worry, and then. But even that is a very short time period.
Yeah.
In the
what was your first idea?
It was, we come from product engineering backgrounds, and we saw time and time again that it was very hard for product people to be super data driven and see like what are the common insights and patterns and feature requests and bugs that are coming up from not just any customer, but a lot of the customers that they cared about. And so our goal was to like help bring data to that mission by like basically crawling gong call transcripts, sales transcripts, customer success check-in call transcripts, customer support tickets, and like use LLMs to surface the repeated patterns that were coming up from customers, and then slice and dice that by CRM data. So maybe there's a high value contract coming up for renewal and you want to get ahead of that and see what kind of things that customer has been asking for and prioritize that in your roadmap.
And what led you to pivot away from that?
Yeah, great question. Um, one of the greatest learnings through YC that we got and feedback that we got is this like concept of sell before build. Like, don't try to build the thing, go try to sell it before you spend too much time writing code for it. And we did that and we couldn't sell the thing. Like, there's a lot of casual interest and people are like, yeah, I would use that. Yeah. And then you'd ask, okay, here's the Stripe credit card link, and then crickets. So we learned pretty quickly that although it's useful and interesting, it's not the commercially viable product that we wanted to build and sell.
So your second thing, you went selling first.
We did a lot of LinkedIn outbound user discovery calls, like pitching, like understanding what the problems are, pitching our ideas of solutions, getting verbal commitments that they would pay for such a solution. And after we did that and organized our thoughts and spotted the patterns, we're like, cool, game time, let's do this.
What was it like when you made your first sale for that new product?
I still remember it was one of, maybe this wasn't literally our first, but one of the first was to a batchmate of ours during YC. It was for $750 a month.
Yeah.
That customer ended up investing a little bit in us, which was cool. But Sid and I were sitting next to each other in front of our laptop on this call, and I just say with a straight face, okay, that'll be $750 a month. And he's like, okay. I'm like, cool, I'll send you the Stripe link right after this. And he's like, okay. Close the call, close the computer, turn to Sid. I'm like, holy shit, we did it. And we're all like excited and clapping. So it was a very glorious moment. Yeah.
Are they still a customer?
They're not still a customer.
Oh, no.
It ended up being like in those very, very early days, like you're going in lots of different directions with where the product might go. And we still keep in touch. Great friend and investor. Very, very excited in what we're doing. But ultimately, like, was a different product vision than what we ended up going down.
Yeah, you say that like, it's an X. We still keep in touch.
That's right.
We ended on good terms.
That's right.
How did it feel letting them go as a customer?
Yeah, that is sad, right? Like when your product vision changes routes from where some of your early customers the vision that you sold, and it's sad, but ultimately the right thing for the business.
How did you make that decision?
Pretty simply, I'd say. In those days, we're very, very keen on fine tuning as a solution, and that's making a resurgence now, and is yet again interesting. But at the time, it ended up not being the right tool for the job in most of the cases that we were exploring. And so for some of our early customers, we're helping them build these fine-tuned models and decided that should just not be a priority of ours right now. And so it's kind of matter of fact, I guess is the answer, is like, hey, you need this, like you're happy to keep the model. Here's the data used to train it. But unfortunately, we won't be able to keep doing this for you, at least for some time.
You're the CTO. How was that decision made?
It's less of an engineering decision, more of like a product and business strategy. We effectively ran an experiment where we, for 2 months, like went hard on trying to primarily sell, not build, fine tuning. Found some like really interesting, use cases for that, delivered on that, but ultimately still like, at least in our experience and what we're seeing, is a lot of the market is still trying to do the basics, right? Like a lot of software companies are just trying to use the basics of AI to power like pretty simple features. And there's a lot of lower hanging fruit for them right now. And, there are companies out there that are going to be very successful focusing on that niche, more mature part of the market that does need fine tuning today. And so I think with a lot of these things, it's kind of just periodic reevaluation of where the market's pulling us.
Yeah. So the market pulled you to you being the CTO.
Oh no, but the market. You asked how is the decision made? Were you asking how is it decided that I became the CTO?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought
the market requested it.
I thought you were asking how is it decided that we deprioritize fine tuning. I see. So Sid and I are
Yeah.
co-CTOs.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. So Akash is our CEO. Sid and I are
Yeah.
co-CTOs, but we each have our specialties and our
Yeah.
areas of like responsibility and focus. So
What would you say your specialty is?
product engineering, just
Okay.
really like working closely with customers and prospects and translating like what it is that they're
What
trying
type
to
of
achieve.
engineering isn't product engineering?
I mean, everything's product engineering at the end of the day, I suppose, right?
Look, I specialize in the engineering part of the engineering.
uh,
I guess you can have internal like data analytics
yeah, I
if you're
suppose
an
so.
enterprise. Yeah.
Ideally, that's all like serving some product that you're
Yeah.
selling as a business, right? But
Yeah. So that's all Sid's job. The internal
so Sid
analytics of
is,
Vellum.
yeah, I mean, Sid is like a wizard at back end infrastructure, the ML side of things.
Yeah.
So we complement each other quite well there.
What aspects of ML are you most excited for?
I mean, the easy answers that are still true are I'm excited for these models to get better with their reasoning capabilities. I
Yeah.
think multimodality is continuing to be like really interesting in what it can do. So those are like some of my gut reactions that
Yeah.
all, despite them maybe being generic. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think there is a lot there, right? Like as these models get better, their reasoning capabilities get better. They're able to like draw meaning from different mediums. Like
Yeah.
that's going to open up just more and more and more.
Is your platform already set up for multimodal
It's
models?
not now. No, we
Yeah.
are like, being the size that we are, like being very focused is something
Yeah.
that I believe in. Ultimately, like we're keeping our ear very close to the ground, and again, where the
Yeah.
market pulls us, and if the market pulls us to be more compatible with multimodality, like we'll do that.
Okay, so going a little bit more towards the machine learning side, do you keep up with the modern research?
Personally, not as much as ideally I would. I think
Yeah.
like there's a lot of great work being done, of
Yeah.
course. I spend my mornings reading AI newsletters and
Yeah.
keeping up with some of the highlights.
And shit is happening at a crazy pace right
Yeah,
now.
I'm honestly like I could use like
Yeah.
some LLM agent that's like scouring the internet for those things and surfacing
Your
the
next
highlights for me.
project.
Yeah, maybe we dog food Vellum and do that.
Yeah.
I take like a very pragmatic approach to a lot of this, which is what are our prospects asking about and what are our customers asking for and what's
Yeah.
preventing them from getting their use cases into production. And that's where I spend majority of my focus, but every once in a while we try to like resurface and look around and then look ahead and
Yeah.
then go back under to what our customers are asking, like
You ever
care
get
about.
like on the phone with a client and they're just like, "Here's this new paper."
Oh,
Like,
all the
do you
time.
you have this implemented? And you're like,
Yeah. I mean,
"Sure."
papers, new feature
Yeah.
releases, competitor drops, all the thing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like one of the coolest parts about our job, I'd say, is like
Yeah.
we get to interface with all of these AI companies who themselves are very smart and keeping up to date on things. And
Yeah.
it's just like a cool front row seat in
Yeah.
what's going on.
How do you deal, at least on a product side, with the amount of new things going on?
There's a couple ways. That is
Yeah.
like both the excitement and challenge of us
Yeah.
in our industry is being able to have good intuition around like what's a passing fad versus what's
Yeah.
here to stay and should be built into a platform. How do we decide? Again, it's primarily driven
Yeah.
by customer demand and
Yeah.
what use cases within companies it's unlocking.
What recent things have like customers asked for that it's just been like, we gotta get this into our
For a long
system?
time, it was our workflows product where,
Yeah.
we just heard over and over and over, like, you know, people needing to string together multiple prompts or chain together
Yeah.
prompts or invoke business logic between them. But um, the problem being that it's really hard to do that at a rapid rate of experimentation
Yeah.
as well as test and see like each step along the way what's going right and what's going wrong, that we just like felt compelled to build a solution for that.
So you built a solution for that.
Yeah,
Customers liked it.
so far, yeah, it's been great.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. We partnered with a couple of our existing customers early on and like
Yeah.
co-developed with them and made sure that it was like solving their specific use cases. So, for
Yeah.
example, like one of them has built a wellness chat bot whose like
Yeah.
entire LLM backend is powered by Vellum workflows, and it's been really cool, just like whack-a-mole, like fixing every issue, adding every feature needed to like make that end to end possible.
What's one of the craziest things that you can talk about that a customer has used your product to do?
Yeah. One that I like to talk about is like generating rap lyrics. Like
Was
they
it GeoHot?
no, I probably can't say names or anything, but like yeah, like it's actually like one of our highest traffic usages to generate like at scale like original rap lyrics
Yeah.
for a
I'm
consumer
now
app.
imagining it's Kanye West or something. Can't name names. All of Kanye's lyrics are AI generated.
That wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, huh?
Yeah.
So that's cool, and that's actually led to like some interesting additional customers that are trying to generate
Yeah.
rap lyrics in other languages. And
You don't have any of these rap lyrics here
I
with you.
don't.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah,
I was
that'd be
hoping for a
awesome.
rat.
That would be a great tee up, though, if I
Yeah.
just was also coincidentally a great rapper and could
Of
bust
course. I
that
mean,
out. Yeah,
if it's AI generated, like,
it's
you
got to be
can
good.
memorize the raps. Like, how bad I'm sure you can do terribly, even with a
Yeah,
memorized rap.
that's where monitoring is important. See
Yeah.
what outputs this LLM is generating in the rap.
Observability.
That's right.
Are the lyrics good?
It's been a little while since I've checked, but last I did, they are, and the usage of it is going up. So
Okay. So the good lyrics are driving a lot of usage.
for that company, yeah, it's but I mean that's kind of like, I guess, a good example of the fact that AI could be used for so many different things, from like
Yeah.
whether it's generating raps to like data extraction, summarization. I mean,
Yeah.
um, we see a lot of it.
What uses did you expect for AI before this boom that like did not pan out?
Hmm. I mean, the ones that I expected are largely the ones that I still see a lot of, I guess.
Yeah.
Your like blog post generators, email, like sales email generators, chatbot for X. There's like, I think as we started, those were already
Yeah.
pretty hyped up, and that they continue to be quite hyped up, and a lot of them are successful. I think to make them really good is harder than people think usually.
Yeah.
Building a prototype of them, one of them, is quite easy.
What is something that excites you about the future of AI?
Hmm. To me, like if every person or every profession had like an expert assistant that can help
Yeah.
them do that thing, like that to me is just very exciting, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm a plumber and I can have something on my phone that's like, I can take pictures of things or describe what I'm seeing and have it like provide contextual advice to the task at hand,
Yeah.
backed by the knowledge of thousands of plumbers before me. Like that's
Yeah.
really cool. And I think you can apply that same concept to most professions and most industries,
Yeah.
helping us all just like do better work more efficiently, higher quality, but also like gaining knowledge ourselves through that process.
Is this something that you're currently building?
I view our role as providing the tooling and platform to make it easier for other companies to do that reliably and
Yeah.
more quickly than they would have otherwise. So we ourselves are not building towards that goal directly, but my hope is that we are making like enabling many more companies to do that than
Yeah.
would have existed otherwise.
If that existed, assuming this perfect version of this like pocket AI assistant existed, would there be other companies?
Um, I don't think one, like, I mean, here's my,
Yeah.
I guess, prediction. We're getting into prediction mode, like I think that will be for a long time many companies that are building like verticalized versions of that for specific industries and use cases. I think
Yeah.
we're a long ways off before that gets consolidated into one company that's providing the AI assistant for everything.
What leads you to that conclusion?
Uh, I mean, there are some professions where maybe the knowledge is generic, but there's a lot of professions in which the knowledge is contextual based
Yeah.
on the data or experiences of people that these models aren't trained off of themselves. So I think
Sure.
like, when I think about building a good AI app, if you're a customer of Vellum, you've probably heard this in a demo, but it requires like four big things, or like
Yeah.
four pillars of AI, as I would call it. One is data, like data that's unique to you, your company, your use case, whatever it might be,
Yeah.
things that the model might not have been trained off of. Second
Yeah.
is experimentation, being able to like quickly iterate on prompts or workflows or chains or whatever it might be, or the data itself that's being fed into these prompts in order to power the experience. Third is like lifecycle management and like being able to make changes with confidence and reliably and observing and monitoring what's happening as a result of those changes.
Yeah.
And then fourth is optimization. Like you take all that monitoring data, you take what you're seeing in the world and feeding that back to the first one data and creating a feedback loop to make an AI application better and better over time. So that
Yeah.
first one data, I guess the long-winded answer here is like any data that's unique to that profession or that scenario or use case, like that's not going to come just all from one big company.
What if there's one big company that owns all of the professions?
What do you mean? One company that owns all the
Yeah,
carpenters, the plumbers, everything?
exactly.
Yeah, I guess like if we're speculating way off into the future,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
I mean, the future's been happening fast.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I suppose like companies like Google or others that have a wealth of this stuff could be well positioned for
Yeah.
some of the more like generic roles, but ultimately like every enterprise is going to have data that's not that you can't find on the internet.
How do you keep this data private when you have these models that will just spew information?
Well, it's less about the model. I guess it's more about like where the model's running, how it's using that data, what you're doing with the information that's being spewed out.
I mean, like if a company exposes a model trained on its private data, right? You could essentially get that data from the company by just asking the model to
Oh,
generate
yeah. I mean,
random.
it's
Yeah.
dependent on the use case, right? Like if
Yeah.
that company exposes their model to the public internet and end users that are
Yeah.
pulling, then yes. But in many cases, the output of that model will be used to serve the people within that company or
Yeah.
the direct customers of that company, and not necessarily like the public.
So the moat is companies that are using models internally on internal data.
Or using the output of that model to power user experiences, both
Yeah.
like directly and indirectly. So the direct use cases, the explicit use cases are things like your chatbots, where your
Yeah.
end customers are chatting directly with the model. But there are many, like my belief is that most usages of AI is going
Yeah.
to be like the more mundane stuff, like classifying emails, like in the
Yeah.
Dover recruiting case, or transform like extracting structured data from unstructured text and
Yeah.
using that to power some downstream piece of software.
What goes into building some of these production grade apps?
Depends on the use case. There's a lot
Yeah.
of different architectures depending on what it is that you're trying to do. If we take like a chatbot, for example, because we see a lot of those, uh, chatbots, the end goal is a user chats in and gets back an answer, or maybe some action is performed as a result of this. So what goes into that? Basically, you need knowledge, like you need some knowledge base powered by the experts in this field.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have the AI use that knowledge and produce answers. You need to be able to have the AI know when to try to elicit more information to be able to provide a useful recommendation. And so in this instance, they used a series of prompts with retrieval augmented generation mixed in, with some classifiers along the way. So, for example, user chats in, you have a prompt up front saying, hey, is this something that I, as an AI, am well equipped to answer, or should I either like decline to answer or hand off to a human? So, oftentimes there's classifiers up front to discern whether or not the AI should even be involved in the process.
Yeah.
Then you move on to a following step where maybe you are pulling relevant knowledge in order needed to answer that question. Oftentimes that means like vector databases and semantic search, but sometimes that just means good old fashioned DB queries with based on like user metadata. Retrieve past conversations with user, retrieve
Yeah.
and do that deterministically with a Postgres query. Do semantic retrieval for like topics that we know about. Include that in a prompt that's has really good reasoning and can produce a factually correct answer. And then you might have a final prompt that applies the tone of voice that like a wellness expert might use.
So you would say that there isn't one solution fits all in this case.
No, very rarely.
Okay. Is there a solution that you see being applied more than others?
I'd say the probably like the simplest form is what I
Yeah.
see applied the most, which is retrieval into a single prompt.
Yeah.
That's probably like where most people start. And that is like pretty easy to build. Like
Yeah.
you can prototype that and demo it quite well, but rarely is it sufficient for like actual use cases in
Yeah.
production and handling the edge cases that you're likely to run into.
Is there something that people could be doing better if they just spent a little bit more time, did a little bit of research?
I might be
Yeah.
biased here myself being in the tooling layer, but I think like you should probably not spend all your time doing a ton of research and building a bunch of this stuff from scratch. Like you should
Yeah.
probably try to find tools that help you accelerate the process off the
Yeah.
shelf. So, but
So
to,
Vellum.
I mean, we're one of the players in the space. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of ways that we can help there. But like not everybody needs to be a semantic search expert. Like,
Yeah.
use one of the many like frameworks out there that help with retrieval, whether it's us or others, that have great defaults, and at least start
Yeah.
there. Like use that to build your proof of concept. And like my advice to founders in the AI space is like focus on your customer and like what is the
Yeah.
value you're providing, not like the cool shiny tech that backs it.
Yeah.
If you can start by proving that you can deliver the value, fast track what it takes to get there, then you can like optimize the tech to make it even better later.
Yeah. Is there something that you see a lot of people doing wrong at the moment, or a lot of misconceptions about?
Well, trying to build everything yourself is one of them, probably.
Yeah.
The second is, I think, one interesting thing I've observed is, and I mentioned this at like one of the AI meetups during the YC reunion weekend,
Yeah.
is that a lot of people, especially in enterprises, like emotionally feel this
Yeah.
need to jump straight to like fine tuning a model. They feel like I need a moat, like I need something unique to me, like I need to
Yeah.
fine tune a model. I have all this data, and it's more of like this emotional desire to be unique and less about their customer and like accelerating the rate to deliver value to that customer. So
Yeah.
it could very well be that a simple prompt with GPT-4 does better than a fine-tuned model, certainly to begin
Yeah.
with. What do I think people do wrong? I think they get too focused on the tech and not their customers.
What's some hack that you guys figured out during Y Combinator that just like really helped you out?
I mean, some of these are cliche, maybe. Like one hack is like to actually not just like listen, but act on the feedback from our partners.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us founders sometimes think that like we're the exception. And the thing is like you need to be the exception at least in at least
Yeah.
one or two areas. So like it's easy to make the excuse that, hey, this piece of advice, like I'm finally the exception for this one, but
Yeah.
very rarely were we actually the exception, and learned that the hard way. So we talked about selling before building. That was
Yeah.
one that like we convinced ourselves for a long time, like, hey, for this product to work, people need to feel it. They need to use it. They need to like, we came up with all kinds of excuses, like it's the economy, like all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
stuff. But once we like finally listened and just stopped building and started selling, we learned pretty quickly that it wasn't going to go anywhere. So
Yeah.
one hack was just actually acting on and listening
Yeah.
the advice that we're being given.
How did you guys make the decision to apply to Y Combinator?
Great question. The company that we were at had gone through Y Combinator, and we had heard great things from them, great things from people in our network. We've been in the tech space for a while, so Y Combinator was always a thing, and so it kind of just felt like for us it was like a really good forcing function to like start this thing. Had we, I think like getting the funding, that was like the juice we needed to really like make the jump and become entrepreneurs.
So you hadn't quit your jobs before applying
We
to Y
hadn't,
Combinator?
no.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of founders that I know quit their jobs before. But actually, you're the first person that I've spoke
Really?
to that like Y Combinator, I guess took that risk on. And
Yeah, I guess so.
why do you think that Y Combinator chose you guys?
Great question. I think we have a track record of working together for a long time. We've worked in tech for a while. We have diverse backgrounds in what we've done and what we've worked on. So it's worked out well so far for us, and I think they saw that.
Do you ever feel like they picked wrong?
No.
You're like, I'm perfectly confident. I'm amazing at this. Like,
no, I mean, like that's not
decision.
that. Like, I think like, yeah, we were meant to do this, and it feels
Yeah.
cool to have been recognized for that and be like given that chance. And I feel
Yeah.
confident in that. Yeah.
What's the most gratifying thing about being a founder?
One thing that I personally love is like having a company be like, I will buy what you're selling, but
Yeah.
I need these things. And
Yeah.
then for us to just turn it around in a day or two, or like a couple days, and it's built, and then they pay us, and we're like, wow, we did it.
Yeah.
Like having something that people want, but they want even more, and then us being able to deliver on that, and then them being happy about that, that's like really, really gratifying for me.
How much do you say you work?
Quite a bit. Quite a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. I
Like,
think well, I mean, everyone has their different
yeah.
spectrums. For me, I probably wake up 7:30 in the morning, start answering customer Slack messages and teammate messages right away. Probably I'm like at my computer working
Yeah.
by like 9:30 or 10.
Literally you're in bed, like
Or
on
like
your
drinking my
phone.
coffee. I'm like, I probably shouldn't respond to this until after I finish my coffee.
Yeah.
And then I'm probably at my working, like actually at my computer working till probably like 8, 9 p.m. and then
Yeah.
a bit more slacks until like 10:30 or 11, and then
Yeah.
and then repeat.
You got married recently,
I
right?
did get married just in
Yeah.
June. Yeah. Thank
Congrats.
you. Yeah.
How does your wife feel about that schedule?
Yeah, she's very understanding and supportive. She actually lived with Sid and Akash and I,
Yeah.
and during YC for 4 months, and man, we might not be alive without her and her support during that time. So yeah, she's a former founder herself. She
Yeah.
works at Toast as a
Toast.
technical lead there. Yeah, like restaurant software,
Okay.
and so she gets it.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
she helps make sure that I stay alive.
Yeah. Do you think you would have been able to do any of it without her?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that you want the world to know about YC, being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
AI?
I'd say like this, AI hype wave is like one of the most exciting waves I've seen in my career. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people feel similarly. Like I genuinely believe that this is like as transformational as like the internet.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible time to build a company, to take a risk, to like
Yeah.
go to events and meet people and find who might be your founder, or think about who you've worked with, because
Yeah.
chances are you already know your founder, your co-founder. And yeah, if there was a time to build a company, take a risk, it's probably now.
Well, thank you for coming on, Noah.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.